There we go.
Hi, here
Technical
you are.
difficulties.
Don't you love when Instagram does that to us?
I know. I'm like, what is happening? I'm like, I hit accept or
I
I
know.
requested and joined.
I love those bright red messages that they're unable to join when you invite someone 3 times.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. Really
It's so
good.
good to have you here today. I love the
Thank you.
sunflowers in the background.
Yes, we've had them for a couple of days. I was like, well, let's, purposely place them so it makes it feel nice and soft and welcoming.
That is perfect. It is not a sunny day here at all. It's dreary and rainy, so that's very
Oh,
helpful.
it's overcast right now, but it's supposed to be blue sky sunshine by like 1. So some of our sunshine will
Yeah,
come out your way.
send that our way.
Yeah.
Um, but it's so good to see you here.
Yeah.
Thank you again for joining us. I feel like this is a long time coming. Like, obviously, we've been talking since well before the babies came, but
Yeah.
time is like goes like this also. So, who knows?
I know time has flown by so fast.
But let's start with a big congratulations
Thank you so
to
much.
your amazing family of 4 now. Such a beautiful family. So.
I know it's crazy. It went from, well, I guess we were already a family of 4 with the fur baby, so now we're a family of
Mhm.
6.
Mhm. That's how it felt with us too. We actually adopted our dog when I was pregnant. I feel like the dog has just always known me at first to be pregnant and definitely knows when I am and when I'm not. It's just,
Yeah.
you know, they're part of the family.
Nice.
But we're just so grateful to have you here. I mean, I think you're just over 2 months in, right? To
Yeah. It was
this
2 months
journey.
last last Monday. So on the 9th.
Mhm.
So it's just flying by. It's
I'm
crazy.
sure. Well, we can't wait to hear all about it. And, so just as a quick intro for those of you just joining now, oh my gosh, thank you to everyone for joining.
I know. Hello, everybody.
Um, Hi, everyone, again. So, this is the most amazing, inspiring, open, honest, funny, creative, all the things, Bryan at Bryan and Chris on Instagram. And hope I did that justice. It's Bryan and Chris on TikTok. And he and his husband have just created such a vibrant and loyal community. I think over 750,000 followers now who are
Ah,
just
it's
maybe
crazy. Yeah.
following along with your path to parenthood, raising awareness around surrogacy and egg donation and LGBTQIA plus family building and fatherhood. And so thank you for
Mm,
sharing all of that. It's just educating so many people and inspiring people, I think, and supporting as well as they go through their ups and downs of their own journey. So thank you for doing that.
absolutely.
And also thank you to those of you followers and GoStork intended parents who are on our platform who've been submitting questions. We love when we get your questions. We've added them to the list. If anyone has questions that you think of during the live, you can feel free to put them in the comments and we will try to get to them as well.
Yeah.
And then finally, for those of you new to GoStork, we are the first fertility marketplace where intended parents find, compare, and connect with top fertility providers. And so our mission is really to provide inclusive, trusted access to affordable fertility care. And that's all over on our website. But here in these lives, we just really love to bring more transparency and access to just information, helpful information and support. So just want to thank Bryan again for helping us to do that today. And with that, I really want to stop talking and get to your beautiful story. So if, shall we? I'd love
Yeah.
to start at the beginning and actually just hear a little bit more about how you two met, got together and decided to build a family together.
Yeah, Chris and I, we're going on 11 years this October, which in gay years is like 100 years. And we met online, so back before Tinder was even, a thought. And we got married 5 years later on our actual dating anniversary. So
Oh,
which is kind of nice. So this year will be 6 years of marriage, 11 years together. We live in San Diego. I'm originally from Southern California, and so is Chris. And a few years after we got married, we started talking more deeper about wanting to expand our family. Both of us have always known that we wanted to have kids even before we met each other, so that was really nice that we both had that common, ground. And at some point, we were like, you know what? I think we're not getting any younger. Let's dive into it. And unfortunately, right when we made that decision, the pandemic had just started like a few months before. So it's been a long journey, which I know we can get more into throughout the month. But here we are today, present day with twins, just over 2 months.
And they are so cute. I can't wait to talk more about all of it.
Yeah.
So I guess moving on to your specific journey, you chose to do surrogacy and obviously egg donation, including IVF as well, right? So how did you just come to the decision that surrogacy would be your journey to fatherhood? Basically, like what were your considerations there,
Yeah.
deciding factor?
Yeah, so we were thinking of a few options. We were looking into surrogacy, we were looking into foster care, we were looking into adoption. And ultimately, at the end of the day, after kind of looking into each option, Chris and I really, really wanted to create our own family with children that were genetically related to us. And so that was something that we made, the decision that we made together. And then from there, we were like, okay, so now that we want to go down the surrogacy route, where do we kind of start? And we really had no idea where to begin.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, we had some friends that had another couple friend that owned their own surrogacy agency, IVF clinic, all that kind of stuff. And so we were able to connect with them to kind of get a little bit of an idea of, potential timeline, what the costs look like, what we could or maybe not expect, just because everyone's journey is different, as we have certainly witnessed
Mm-hmm.
firsthand. And then from there, we kind of like reconnected and kind of figured out where we wanted to start. And we were recommended to first and foremost find an IVF clinic to get our little swimmers tested, to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that that we first and foremost had viable, strong, high numbers of sperm. And so we got that taken care of at our IVF clinic in La Jolla. And luckily, the results came back with flying colors, which was really great. And then
Mm-hmm.
at that point, we were directed to find an agency and then from there, find an egg donor.
And I mean, you're so lucky that you had friends that started to help you understand the process really quickly. It can be so daunting and confusing for
Yeah.
some people to get started. But, before you met with your friends, like what did you have any awareness around the process? And kind of as you started to like dive in and learn more, was there anything really surprising to you that you tell people when they ask you about it?
I think I had the same thought that a lot of people have that if you have a surrogate, she is the mother of the children. I didn't really know too much as far as what a gestational carrier meant, which was so insightful and
Mm-hmm.
really, really was really more excited on that level because then we could figure out to whoever we chose would be ultimately our wonderful carrier rather than
Mm-hmm.
that connection as the mom, essentially.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that there's still a lack of awareness around that. So in traditional surrogacy, the the surrogate is also essentially the egg donor, right?
Yeah.
And that's not recommended and illegal in many states. So
Yeah.
in most cases with compensated surrogacy, there's a surrogate who's a gestational carrier, an egg donor, and then the fathers or the sperm donor, however that
Yeah.
works.
And when we were doing research, it was really eye-opening to see that there are still some states in this country that do not allow surrogacy. I think New
Mm-hmm.
York finally got on the bandwagon
Yeah.
maybe a handful of years ago. I think at the very
Well, no,
oh,
New York last year. New York,
last
it was
year.
still illegal until the CPSA passed in February of 2021.
Hmm.
And there were so many amazing advocates that helped along with that. We actually interviewed like a lawyer and an agency and some advocates that helped pass that. Andy Cohen also was a big part of that
Oh,
push.
nice. Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, our founder was lived in New York and did his first surrogacy journey before it was legal there. So he had to go out of state for everything.
Yeah, and
Mhm.
and that was something that we also didn't realize too. There would be a possibility of finding a surrogate out of state and egg
Mhm.
out of state, so that would have added a lot more complications. Luckily, we were able to match with both within Southern California, so that was really, really
Yeah.
nice.
It's great that you're in a state that's very surrogacy friendly, which is
Yes.
amazing. But for people that are not, it's more important where your surrogate lives and that she's in a surrogacy friendly state to help you better establish legal parentage.
Mhm.
So where your gestational carrier lives is, the most important component there when you're looking at that geography. So, and so, what were you looking for as far as your match in a surrogacy agency and then your gestational carrier? Did you have specific criteria, like a relationship type of communication process that you were really hoping for and that helped you make that decision?
Yeah, luckily, so the our IVF doctor, once we selected him to do the sperm work, we asked him because we really didn't know agencies even through referrals or word of mouth. I think we might have done a few Google searches to kind of see what would pop up, and a lot of it's very overwhelming. You're not sure what companies, handle what agencies will assist you with certain things, because they all have different options and packages for you
Hmm.
to choose from. And so luckily he recommended two agencies, the agency actually that our friends, of our friends know, and then another
Hmm.
agency down in San Diego. And ultimately, after connecting with both, again, we just really connected with SAI was our agency in San Diego, and we really wanted to make sure that the agency that we chose was someone that we connected with, because this was going to be our biggest, most important journey of our lives thus far, and we didn't want to feel like we were treated as just another client or a number. We wanted to make sure that we had that personal relationship with our case manager, and all of those types of things. So once we solidified and settled on SAI, they were super helpful in finding us our egg donor as well as our surrogate. I said earlier, for us, we really got lucky, but that was also some of our criteria was that we wanted someone as local as possible to help with
Hmm.
travel and distance and things like that. As we get deeper, I'll say with the surrogate, with our gestational carrier, originally I really wanted someone that we created a special bond and friendship with, because she was, you know, agreeing to carry, both of our twins, and I didn't want it to be an awkward type of journey, because it's 9+ months potentially,
Hmm.
and we really wanted to gain her trust, and obviously have us gain hers, at the same time, and really create a more deeper relationship than just, a transaction or a business transaction, which some people do call it, which it technically is because they get paid. But that was super important to me, and to Chris. And as we were going along with our journey through our first, our second, and our third, those types of criteria kind of changed here and there. But originally, we really, like I said, we really wanted someone that we really bonded with.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I mean, some people do want it to be a little bit more of a business transaction, and other people want a lifelong friend with
Yeah.
their gestational carrier. And it's important to, either way is okay. It's important to find the right match for you, and build that relationship that's best for you,
Yeah.
what you're looking for. And some of this confusion around how to find an agency and all the different information and packages and services and such out there is exactly why GoStork was created. So we totally understand that difficulty. Um, and so I'd love to hear a little bit more about your egg donation selection
Yeah.
process, your egg donor, what you were looking for. It's again one of the biggest decisions you'll make, right? And how that ultimately ended up going through that process.
Yeah. So originally, we were looking for an egg donor that had a nationality that was a kind of a blend of both of Chris and I. So that
Hmm.
both of the both of our babies would be like kind of a blend of both of us.
Hmm.
And I'm half Japanese, half Caucasian, and Chris is 100% Caucasian. So we were trying to find another egg donor with similar genes to mine. So that way, when egg retrievals happened and would get fertilized, they would essentially be a quarter Japanese and 3/4 Caucasian. So that was the way they would have a little bit of the Asian side from me, and then
Hmm.
the Caucasian more component from from Chris. We ended up finding one egg donor that kind of matched that criteria, and she seemed very open in the beginning. But then it had been a few years since her last egg retrieval, and she was now married, and her husband were thinking of wanting to expand their family, and they wanted to start
Hmm.
trying. So she's like, well, let me talk to my husband to see if we want to postpone our personal journey to help you guys, or if we want to kind of stick to it and do this for us.
Hmm.
And ultimately, at the end, she had said, I'm so sorry, like my husband and I want to, try and create our own family. And we're like, girl, like it's okay, like congratulations,
Hmm.
fingers crossed for you, best of luck. And then after that point, it really got difficult trying to find an egg donor with those same type of genetics. And Chris was like, so we're kind of, waiting, and weeks are going by, and we don't know if we're going to find another match that fits well with what we want. Is there any way we can open up the pool to blue-eyed um, candidates, because he has blue eyes and he's always pictured that his mini me, or his, whether it was his son or daughter, to kind of carry on his blue eyes.
Mhm.
Absolutely sure. Yeah, I don't want to keep waiting. Like, let's open it up. And we added more criteria with our agency. So we had asked for, under a certain age, they recommended. We asked have someone that was hopefully local here to San Diego, and then obviously had a great profile with good family health history. Obviously a lot of people look into even deeper, like what their GPA was for high school, what did they
Mhm.
graduate from college. Like, some of those things are really cool on paper. Don't know how much of that will transfer over to the to the child, because obviously she was very driven and things like that. But we ultimately found a wonderful woman who lived here in San Diego. She was 25. I won't mention her name just to keep it confidential.
Mhm.
We actually kept it a closed case, so we never met in person. We were open to it, and so was she. But we kind of were like, let's maybe wait, and then down the line, if we change our minds, maybe we can meet her via Zoom to tell her thank you, or to send her a thank you card, or something like that. But luckily, after we found her profile and everything kind of matched up, she was very excited to work with us, and so the whole screening process began for her. She passed with flying colors. She did her psych evaluation, and then she met with our IVF doctor, and he was like, "She's good to go." So then, obviously, contract started, hormones, getting her on her cycle, and we did an egg retrieval. When was that? I want to say like late summer, early fall of 2020. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, just a little before us, but
Yeah.
um, so I also wanted, before we move on, to get into a couple of questions that came in from some followers
Yeah.
around your decision-making process. A few of the questions were around like the financial aspects of it. So just as far as like, was price an important criteria for you? How did you keep costs down? Someone else asked if you received any grant funding as you were financially planning the journey, and just if you have any advice around that.
Yeah. So we had it in our minds that what we thought surrogacy would cost for us, but also based on the conversation that we initially had with our friends, friends of friends.
Mhm.
But obviously we knew, and they had told us every journey is different. So it
Mhm.
depends on what agency you select. If you choose a first time surrogate, if you choose a second time surrogate. First times are usually cheaper because they haven't done it before. A
Mhm.
second or third or beyond is considered a proven surrogate, at least from what our agency had called them. And they were more expensive because they've done it before. They not only showed that they could do a successful pregnancy on their own with their own children, but they were able to do successful surrogacy pregnancies and to deliver full term, or mostly full term, with minimal to no complications, things like that. And then obviously, costs that revolve around with insurance, and all of the things, attorney fees. And so in our minds originally, and I'll be transparent, I've talked about it before, I think we
Mhm.
we thought we were going to be right around like 120 to 150, 120 to $150,000, because we wanted to do twins, and because we knew that would cost extra.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, because we had so many setbacks, which I know we can get to at a later time, it definitely kept bumping up our overall price point to
Mhm.
total all in amount. Um, and so it was difficult. We had to get really creative at some point when our baby fund kind of ran out, because we had reserved a decent amount of money set aside. We had sold our house a few years ago and kind of pocketed that money to apply for this journey. And then when that ran out, we are like, okay, we have to figure out another
Mhm.
route. And at the time, we did look into financing. Our agency said, hey, there's recommendations that we can give you with certain banks that will work with you with surrogacy and things like that. But they weren't very friendly with interest rates and all those types of things. We did apply for a few grants. A company had reached out to us through social media and said, hey, we give away grants every quarter. We would love
Mhm.
apply every year, or every quarter. It's for a small fee. It goes to their organization, and you obviously share your story every time. But we were never selected. So
Mhm.
we really had to, like I said, get really creative with financing. But we didn't really get any financial help as far as with grants, or with um, banks and such. I do wish that there were more opportunities and options out there, and there might be now. But at the time, because everything was happening so fast, and they're like, money needs to be in the account by this time, for over every milestone to make sure that
Mm-hmm.
you're still able to pay for your journey. So that was really, really, really stressful. But I would
Yes.
say you just kind of do your best to do your research on what you think it might cost. But I'll say with GoStork, I mean it. You guys definitely have a lot of resources and things to look at for those types of questions and
Yeah.
concerns.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that. We have some thoughts to sort of help with that. It's another reason that GoStork was created. It's such an expensive journey, and there was a major lack of cost transparency in the industry, right? And so we actually have a lot of resources and articles on the site where you can find lists of grants that are available, and you can literally click off to each grant and apply. Different types of loans you can apply for. Other ways to like do GoFundMe's and fundraising parties and other creative ideas that other intended parents have done before. You can find that under surrogacy, egg donation, and IVF articles, and they each list out all the costs involved as well. Some people even just ask their families for, all their holiday gifts for the next 5 years to all be
Yeah.
contributed to their journey. I actually interviewed someone named Devin Beza, who's amazing. She's the fertility finance coach. And so she gave a lot of great tips on our Instagram live interview. So that's like a good resource to go check for. But, and also, from our homepage, so you can go to GoStork and find over 60, I think now, surrogacy agencies and over 10,000 egg donors, but you can also just click to apply for a loan right from the homepage. So it'll just take a couple of minutes, no obligation, just put in
Sure.
some information and see what you pre-qualify for. So you could potentially get a list of lenders depending on, your financial situation right there. And then also actually, so our founder saved $50,000 between his first and second journey by looking at the cost templates. So on GoStork, we have for every surrogacy agency, they have to be completely transparent about their costs up front for intended parents there. So total journey cost, but then broken down by all the fees involved. And you can choose some of your favorite agencies and just click to use our comparison tool and see them side by side. So that transparency is just one of the big problems you wanted to solve, and how a lot of
Yeah.
people save money is that's their criteria. You can filter your
Yeah.
favorite by the lowest cost. And so some agencies that have been long established, if you want to, if cost is not an issue for you, you might want to go with one of the longest established, most expensive agencies. But there's also some newer boutique agencies that might not have as many journeys under their
Sure.
belt,
Hmm.
but they might cost less. And if you're open to learning more about them, you can kind of use cost as your criteria to make your selection. It's just that not everyone's aware of all those agencies. So we just want to get the information out there.
Yeah, it's really disappointing and sad, like how much it costs to make a baby. Seeing granted, it's our choice. This is what we want, but like when we were breaking everything down initially, it's like holy smokes, like just to potentially create a family, it's not even guaranteed. And
Right.
like as we get in deeper with our journey, there were several steps that we paid again and again because things fell through, and every vendor that we work with, they fulfill their duties, they fulfill their work, and they're just because something falls through the cracks or goes wrong on our end doesn't mean that, oh, we'll do it for free for you again. It's kind of like, nope, gotta pay for it a second, a third, fourth time.
Right.
So
And we all need to help. Yesterday was actually Resolve's Advocacy Day.
mm,
And so one thing, like, again, our founder, who's a gay man, and he was single at the time. He actually met his husband as he met his surrogate. But he went to his benefits department and found out he had no benefits to start a family. And if it was, a straight woman that came with an infertility diagnosis, they would get benefits towards IVF and what have you, but he wouldn't. And so
yeah,
these are just things that you can, go to your benefits and HR department and push for and see, learn about advocacy days. Everyone can do some really simple things that, just to try to help push for more benefits out there. And, for better insurance policies and such. One thing you mentioned was about the insurance. If your surrogate has her own insurance, you can save a lot of money versus if you have to cover the insurance. So you can actually search for a surrogate that already has her own insurance. So there's just like a lot of tips out there to help, chip
yeah.
away at the total costs.
And to remain on with transparency and with cost, because this was something that we obviously probably read or saw, or maybe we didn't because there's so much paperwork and
Mm-hmm.
contract reviewing and signing. I remember we were so excited when we found out our surrogate, who we actually used for our twins, had insurance that covered the surrogacy process, and we were
Mm-hmm.
like, yes. And
Amazing.
then down the line, we were told, okay, well, since she had um, coverage to cover this, she gets a bonus because she helped you cover the insurance, technically the insurance for the journey, which was pretty similar to if we would have just bought our own insurance policy for her
Ah,
during the journey. So it was kind of like,
okay.
well,
You
heck.
told us that in advance.
Yeah, and it wasn't something that they snuck in there last minute. Like, it was in the contract. Like, we reviewed back. Like, they had everything. They were like, this, we're so sorry that this was something that maybe that you overlooked or that you missed, but it's here on this page, and it says that she gets this benefit should she have coverage that covers her surrogacy journey. And we are like, no, I mean, if she gets a bonus, like, that would be great. But then we saw the amount of the bonus, and we're like, we found policies that were equal
Right.
to what
Wow.
that savings would have been. So it was a little disheartening, but at the same time, it's like, well, it is what it is. We're in it. We can't, we can complain all we want, but we signed it, and that's what it
Yeah.
is. I would definitely say, even though you have your attorneys who are there for you and they will review the contract step by step, definitely take more time on your own before you have that final meeting with your attorney to go over it and to sign, just so that way everything is clear. But like I said, it can be really overwhelming because there is so much paperwork and contracts involved, and if you're not really familiar with legal contracts or familiar, with signing a lot of contracts for work or things like that, it can be a little daunting. So
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And,
yeah.
you have to have your attorney, as does your carrier. So, it's important that both sides are very aware of what they're signing and both are protected to set the journey up for success. Um, so I'd love to get further into your particular journey. I know that there were some difficult setbacks along the way, but also some amazing highlights. And
Yeah.
can you just walk us through, getting pregnant and the pregnancy and
Yeah.
joining appointments, like how did everything go?
Yeah, I'll try and quickly go over the negative so we can, or the not so fun, so we can focus on the
Yeah,
positive, the
it's
exciting
okay.
part.
People need to be prepared that no journey goes perfectly,
Yeah.
and you have to be ready for that
Yeah.
and think about it in advance. So,
And we definitely already had that mindset of like, okay, like, we can't be in control. This is something that is out of our hands. We need to just let it, take its course. But
hmm
never in a million years thought all of the things that happened would have happened to us. So originally, so after we found our egg donor, we had our embryos created, and they were on ice, and they were ready to go. We were finally ready to match with our surrogate, and we found one right away through with the help of our agency, and she was so wonderful. We bonded right away. Since it was during COVID, we weren't able to meet in person. We had to do it kind of via Zoom, which was kind of
hmm
weird, but also like it was fine. And
we're
we
all getting used
connected.
to that. So,
I guess it's kind of like the new norm, which kind of makes me
mhm.
sad because I'm a big people person, and that energy of being in a room together, it's just really nice. Um, and we were like she and I were like two peas in a pod. We connected really well. She grew up in my hometown.
Oh,
Hospital that she would deliver at is like one of the hospitals that I was hoping maybe we would be able to be connected with if we found a surrogate in that area, and so that was really nice. And she was a mother of two. She was so sweet. We got to meet her kids, over the course of the journey. And then so after that initial call went, we matched. We did our paperwork. She started her psych evaluation. She passed with flying colors. Like, it was all just kind of like, this is really nice. Like, everything is going so smooth. And by the time her paperwork and her file got to our IVF doctor, he was like, I'm so sorry. I will not work with her. And we were kind of like, well, why? And this had been like maybe a few weeks later. So we had been texting, obviously, with her back and
hmm
forth, like, so excited, can't wait. This is so great. And he's like, she has a heart condition listed in her file. And she unfortunately was not aware of that. And obviously we weren't expecting that to be the case. And so she's like, I don't think this is right. Like, I don't remember getting diagnosed with this. I don't recall my OB ever saying. She's like, I want to fight this. I think this might be an error, or maybe if I did have it, I don't have it anymore, because she's not sure how far back the record went. And this was right around the holidays in 2020. It was like end of November, early December, so between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And our IVF doctor says, okay, no problem. Like, you go back to your OB, you schedule an appointment to get it all checked out and take a certain test. I don't remember the test names, but if it comes back negative, meaning that it's been resolved and it's good, then we can proceed forward. And we're like, okay, great. So it took a few more weeks for her to get an appointment because, again, it was during the holidays, COVID, short staffing, all that kind of stuff. So she didn't get an appointment until after the first year of 2021. And then after that, it took a couple more weeks to confirm if she had, or if she did, or she didn't have the issue anymore. And unfortunately, it came back saying that she still did. She actually had a very small hole in her heart. And the reason why our IVF doctor said he wouldn't touch her is because she's already at risk because she has that issue. But also during pregnancy, it can add a higher risk of stroke for her. And so obviously that would potentially put her in danger. That could potentially put the twins in danger. And he was like, my reputation, like I would love to work with her, but I just don't want that risk on my hands. I don't want to be responsible for that. You could probably find another IVF doctor that might do that for you, but I will not. And as heartbreaking as it was, I remember we were on Zoom together and we were bawling because by this point it was like middle of January. But we had to say, like, I'm so sorry, like, we want you to take care of yourself now that you know about it. I guess we were trying to say, like, the bright side is now it's been brought to your attention and now you can make sure you take care of it because you have children of your own, so we wanted to make sure
nothing went wrong with her prior pregnancies,
nothing,
but now she knows for the future and, isn't in a situation where she'd be surprised. So
yeah. So then that connection was done, or was severed, and then we took a little bit of time, probably like another week to 2 weeks, just because it was more hard for me. I'm very emotional, so I needed a little bit more time than Chris. Like Chris definitely shows emotion, and it was hard for him, but he was able to kind of like move on a little faster than me, just because he could see, the bright light at the end of the tunnel. Like we still need to keep moving. And so once I was ready, we went back to our agency. And they found another gal. She didn't live as close, but she still lived in somewhat Southern California. And at that point, I had my guard up, and this was middle of February when we finally got to match with our second surrogate. And I was like, I don't know if I want to get as close as I did with our previous, because we got to talk to her for almost 2 months, and we built that relationship. We even met in person because we were so excited. And so when we got to interview our second surrogate via Zoom, I wasn't cold or mean to her by any means, but it was very much like, hi, hey, like it wasn't like this,
it wasn't the full Bryan.
Yeah. And then, but the call went great. She was like, nope, I would love to work with you guys. And Chris and I were like off camera afterwards. We're like, she seems fine enough. Like, in which now we look back and say, that's not what you should do. Obviously, like we were hurt and our walls were up a little bit, but obviously settling for anything during this process is something that you should reconsider, unless it's out of your control. If it's out of your control, then you obviously need to process and move on from it. But she matched, and we did paperwork. She got her psych evaluation, so we had to do that again. Her husband, because she was married, also got a psych evaluation. Our previous surrogate wasn't married, so it was just her by herself. All of that went well. Their health blood screenings went well because they want to make sure that they're good and healthy, as you know. And then at that point, she was given a prescription to start new birth control for the new journey. And that's something that I didn't know about either, because most of these women are on birth control now because they're not wanting to get pregnant until they're ready to do the surrogacy journey. And so she had to stop her current birth control regimen and start the new one. And as we were going through contracts and signing and all that kind of stuff, we realized that she kind of fell off the map, and we're like, what happened? She's not responding to emails, things like that. And the day after we signed our contract, which luckily we were all supposed to wire a large sum of money into the trust account, which Chris was like, you know what, we'll just do it on Monday. Something was telling him, like, let's just wait till Monday. On Saturday, yeah, he had a feeling. She emailed us and our agency and said, unfortunately, I can no longer proceed forward with this journey. I am now pregnant. With her own child. And we were like so stunned because it wasn't something that we were expecting, because we had already been through the loss with our first, and then now this, that was something that we never even thought was possible. And we were like, well, crap, like this. I said much worse words than that, but I'll keep it rated G on the on live. But it was, like,
There's no children on here.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Holy smokes! Like this is
Yeah.
just like this is really unfortunate. And now
Mhm.
we've paid all of that money again for the second surrogate up to that point, because it was, like I said, their health screenings, their psych evaluations. We already paid for some of her hormone prescriptions that she was going to start, plus the birth control, plus the doctor visits. Like we
Mhm.
had already spent a good 10 grand by that point. And a lot of that was just wiped away. And at that
And
point,
time
I
emotionally draining.
Oh yeah, I
Like,
was so done at that point. I told Chris, I said, I just feel like God, the universe, whoever you believe in, like, is telling us slash me, you are not meant to have kids. Not in a bad way. It's just you're just not meant to be a
mhm.
father or to have children, whatever. And I fell kind of into a deep dark hole, and was there for a few weeks. I was really devastated because this was now our second time. And luckily, Chris is the amazing husband that he is. He, comforted me and supported me during that time, and was able to bring me back up to the surface and say, we've come this far. The universe or whoever is not telling us that we're not supposed to have kids. It's just we're supposed to go through this to further appreciate it when we actually get pregnant, and when we actually, welcome our kids
Mhm.
at some time in the near future. And by this point, it was end of April. So quite a bit of time. And our agency felt so bad, and we got on a call actually with the CEO by that point, and she's like, I'm holding your hand now from this time to the end, because you guys have been through so much. She's like, I need you to know, everyone's journey is different. There's always peaks and valleys, and positives and negatives, but your specific journey is one for the books. And I'm really, really sorry that you've had to go through not one, but two of these, for different reasons, and that you've had to, spend and lose this money that you don't get back, unfortunately. And so she's like, we're gonna kind of reset, let's go through your criteria again. Is there anything that we want to change that might make the situation better? And at that point, we had decided that we wanted to do a proven surrogate, because the first two were first timers, because they were cheaper, and we were like, well, we want to save
Mhm.
additional money, because sometimes it could be 20, 30,000, a $30,000 difference, and we were like, ugh, we need to now hopefully take it to the next level and choose someone that's done this before. And so they were able to find us our third and final surrogate. We met her in June, still via Zoom of 2021, because of COVID and
Mhm.
the pandemic. And I still had my walls up, but by the end of that, I think it was a 2-hour Zoom call, the walls were down. I felt good again. I would say very similar to what I had the feeling of from our first surrogate.
Mhm.
And it just all started to just flow really, really nicely. So we were done with that Zoom call. Match paperwork came through, psych evaluation again for her husband, health screening, getting checked with the doctor, starting new hormone regimens, as well as her birth control. Contracts were signed by both parties. Money was wired to the trust account, and then we just had to wait, I think, a good month before she was ready to do the transfer at that point. And so that brings us to July of 2021.
And isn't it just amazing that when you almost can't imagine at the time, but you were at your lowest point in that March, April timeframe, and now this April you had twins
Yeah,
in your house with you.
yeah,
It's
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 full
crazy.
circle for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Now looking back at it, definitely worth every low and high point for sure. But yeah, in those dark moments, they were really, really, really hard.
Mhm. I think I want to get to that. I have to do one more question from actually a user
No, no,
before we move forwards. But
it's okay.
um, bef as you know, getting into the actual pregnancy, one of our GoStork users wanted to know if you did genetic testing on the embryos, and just were you informed on kind of the pros and cons? How did you make that decision to do so or not do so?
So we did genetic testing.
Mhm.
Don't recall. My baby brain is not helping right now. I don't recall if our IVF doctor listed out the risks of doing the genetic test or not. I want to say if it's something that is required, then I'm sure he did lay out those details. Sorry, the puppy barking in the background. Um,
My dog often joins these too, but
oh, okay.
well, not today.
No, okay. Um, but ultimately we decided because our IVF doctor, that's hard to say, our IVF doctor,
Hmm.
wanted to make sure that because we had been through so much, that he
Makes
wanted
sense.
to give us the highest possible chance of a successful transfer and pregnancy that he could. So
Hmm.
once all of our egg donors' eggs were fertilized by my and Chris's sperm, and they went out for viability testing, and they came back as embryos. Then he said that they wanted to do the genetic screening to tell, in addition to gender, obviously, and that was kind of a really cool point, but to kind of get those grades of like the AA, the AB, or do we have any Bs or Cs, or some that unfortunately just won't be compatible with life. And he said eventually, essentially, that's when a miscarriage happens. It's an embryo
Hmm.
that's created, but it wasn't strong enough, or it's missing, XYZ, certain chromosomes, whatever it may be. And they also tested for any potential, genetic defects and things like that. Not that that was on our list, but he was just like, I want to just show you everything that we can, full reports of each of your eggs, so that way when we make a decision, or embryos rather, that way when we make a decision of what we implant, you know that you're putting your best foot forward. And I ended up having, in the beginning, I ended up having, well, Chris and I both had 11 eggs each that were fertilized. And then after they were fertilized, I had 9 viable fertilized eggs. Chris had 7, I believe. And then after they went out to become, to turn into embryos, my numbers unfortunately went down dramatically because of certain issues. And Chris luckily had a very large number of embryos that were A grade. And I always say, well, of course yours are, because you're such a smart guy and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, I think I had 2 viable embryos, both boys, and Chris had, I want to say, 6, and he had 3 girls and 3 boys. Like, he had exactly half and half, and they showed us the full reports. So that was super, super helpful, because if we were going to just go in blindly and I just happened to choose a girl embryo, for example, because that's what I really just had in my heart of hearts. I really wanted to have a girl of my own. If I would have chosen one of the girls without him doing that genetic screening, because unfortunately all of my girls were not good. The grade levels were super low. Some were missing chromosomes, things like that. So it would have been, I don't want to say a waste because that sounds bad, but it would have been, it wouldn't have taken,
Hmm.
and lost, we would have lost one of the embryos after the transfer was done. Um, so I am grateful that he recommended that route, and that we did it.
Good. Well, thank you for sharing that. Sounds like definitely the best route for you to take.
Yeah.
So the next question, getting back to, a little bit more about your journey that we are just referring to, it's really on topic any time of year, but especially, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And it's just so important to acknowledge that this is, an emotional journey as
Mm-hmm.
well, obviously. And it's something to acknowledge and prepare for, and something we often hear from intended parents that they maybe wish they'd prepared for a little bit more. So, it sounded like Chris was just so supportive of you during the harder times. Was there ways that you learned to support each other, and were there others that you sought or got support from? Did you work with a therapist that specialized in this journey, or is that something that you'd recommend to others?
Yeah. I specifically didn't work with a therapist, but definitely would recommend it. I've done therapy in the past for other reasons, so I'm not quite sure why I wouldn't have used it during during this journey, because it was a journey. But for Chris and I mean, we're each other's partners, we're each other's spouses. So at the end of the day, sometimes just a long embrace, a long hug to let me just cry it out, or whatever it needs to be, was the perfect therapy for me. Obviously, at some point, family and friends found out that we were planning to have a family and to expand our family. So we got a lot of support there, and they were all very much in the know of what was going on. And then we also got a lot of the support from people on our social media communities when we started to share our journey, which is weird to say because I don't know any of them personally.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that there's so much love and support from strangers, not only in this country, but from around the world that are just sending you, good vibes, prayers, baby dust, hang in there's, sending you hugs, all those types of things virtually, really helped lift my spirits as well. And, Chris was saying like, I feel like, because he doesn't maybe understand it as much as I do, he's like, I don't get how that is helping you, but I'm glad that it is because I'm definitely seeing a difference. He's like, I need the real people in my life that I know and care and love about to get that. To get
Mm-hmm.
it from strangers, it's just different for him. And I said, no, I totally get it. I can't necessarily explain it, but it's something that has helped me, and that's what's also continued um, helped us continue sharing our journey, on social media as well.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to learn a little bit more about that, what that experience has been like to share your journey, if it was scary at first. I think that, you've supported and, like we said, educated and inspired so many people, but I'm clearly you got the love coming back at you, which is so helpful. But everyone has a different approach to social media. Some people, when they're going through the hard times, really need to stay off it.
Yeah.
They don't want to see baby announcements and the Mother's Day stuff. And if it's healthier to stay off it, people should do so. Some people join and create fertility related accounts to share their journey and kind of meet other people in the community around the world and get support back. Some create accounts that are totally separate from their personal account and keep their groups completely separate, or create accounts and share nothing but just follow experts and others going through it. So however you use social media to find the right balance to support your journey is okay, right? But I'd just love to know a little more about that experience for you, how you kind of decided to start being so open and public about it. And
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, I'm an open book. I'm not as private as Chris. I love sharing our experiences, our adventures, and things like that. And when we finally got to finding our third and final surrogate, and we did the embryo transfer, at that point I was like, we've been through so much. I really want to share this with other people that are going through something that could be going through something just like us, but don't have the means or don't have the strength to want to share their story. And by us sharing what we've gone through, hopefully that'll bring more visibility. It'll bring more insight and education to surrogacy, to IVF, to loss, to same-sex parenting, LGBTQ parenting, uh, fatherhood, egg donation, all of that. And I wasn't expecting for TikTok to kind of blow up because we had never really been on TikTok before. We had been on Instagram for 5+ years, and we have a husband's account there, and we've shared a lot of our experiences prior to surrogacy. And TikTok was just kind of this new thing of like, oh, like we can document everything just by video rather than pictures. And I remember doing our first video of our embryo transfer, and the FYP just took it. And so many people came back and they're like, thank you so much for sharing your story. This is amazing. Science is so great. Like, how cool is this that two men can have a family of their own with babies that are genetically related to them. And a lot of people, again, like I said earlier, I didn't even really know how surrogacy worked as far as the genetics were concerned and if the surrogate was related or not. And so people were like, oh my God, she's not the mom? I'm like, no, we use an egg donor and we fertilize her eggs, and then those were implanted, one from each of us, and people are just like mind blown.
mm-hmm.
And then from there, we just continued to share. And I started getting nervous as we started gaining more popularity with followers and comments and engagement, just because I know that we are going to get people who are not for what we went through, who do not support gay marriage, who do not support LGBTQ plus families. And we have gotten some negative comments and feedback, but I always tell myself I don't have time or energy to waste on what other people think, especially if it's negative. So it's just like, bye bye, like don't need to waste my time. And grown, a lot of our original followers are like, "We're here to the rescue." So the minute we see those, we just knock them out or whatever they do. And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, you guys are like my little cheerleaders, rock stars." I'm like, "You're so sweet."
I love that.
Yeah.
And so before we close out we need to get to the end of your pregnancy
Oh yeah.
journey. Talk about the day that the twins came along.
Uh,
I know baby Bryan is real, but it
yeah.
had to be the most memorable day ever. So just tell us about, as you rush to the hospital, the moment, the day, those, that time after bonding in the room, etc. Just love to hear all
Yeah, yeah. It's been over 2 months, and it feels like it's been so much longer than that. Every day, I
about
like every day is Groundhog Day because every day is the same when we wake up with our schedule now. But
it.
uh, luckily, our surrogate was just so amazing, and she was able to carry them full term to 37 weeks, which was the full term that her OB had suggested, recommended. And so we, on the off chance that she was going to maybe deliver a little earlier, we actually drove up to Los Angeles, is where she delivered.
Hmm.
A few days beforehand and stayed there just in case, because from San Diego to LA, with no traffic, it's not that terrible, but with traffic, it's 2, 3 plus hours. And she was delivering them via C-section required by her OB. And, if she all of a sudden went into labor and she delivered, we would miss that. And so I was like, I don't want to take that chance. Obviously, if she delivered even earlier than that, then it's just going to be, it is what it is, and we're going to do our very best.
Hmm.
But we got up there a few days early, and then we were there bright and early that morning. We were so excited. Everyone had to take a COVID test. We went in and she got prepared. I was written into the contract to be in the delivery room with her, and it was just a beautiful moment to be there with her and to see all the I mean, it was with twins. They had 3 or 4 doctors. They had 2 or 3 side nurse doctors to take care of the babies once they were brought out to be cleaned and all that
Hmm.
stuff. And
Did she also
luckily,
have a support person, like her husband, or was it?
her husband, it was technically her support person, because she could have two, myself and him, but he was not able to join. So luckily, someone from our agency was able to come to be her support person, but she wasn't in the delivery room. She was just at the hospital with us, and then
Okay.
she would then be with her in her recovery space.
Okay.
So luckily, our son Brecken was born first, and it was just this beautiful moment of them pulling him up above the curtain, and I could stand up, and I'm like, oh my God, like we created him. He's genetically related to me. That's my little boy. And then to watch them take him over to get cleaned, and then 2 or 3 minutes later, our daughter London was delivered, and luckily the doctor was like, "Where is the other husband?" Because technically they had a rule of like only one person can be in there, and like 30 seconds before she was lifted out of our surrogate's body. They were like, "Bring him in with scrubs, hurry up!" And then right as he walked in, he got to witness the whole delivery, and it was just a beautiful moment. We got to watch both of them side by side, and then we were in there maybe 20 minutes at the most. It was very fast, and then they moved them to recovery, and we were with them there. We got to hold them for the first time, and luckily we got to also stay in the hospital for 2 weeks, 2 days, because technically since they were born 36 and a half weeks ish, they didn't quite hit the 37-week marker exactly per the hospital. They had to stay overnight to be tested and to prove that they could feed from a bottle, they could regulate their own temperature, and that their breathing and everything was good, and that they would pass the car seat test, which we didn't realize that either. I was like, oh, okay, good. There's a car seat test. Good thing we have all of the stuff with us. And the hospital was super great. They took really good care of us. Our surrogate stayed right next door in her recovery room. She got to meet the twins post delivery, and it was a really beautiful time. And then we came home 2 days later on March 11th, and because they were born on March 9th, I don't know if I said that, Wednesday, March 9th, and then we came home on the 11th, and it's been a beautiful, crazy blur since then
Hmm.
with raising our babies. I'm the stay-at-home parent, so it has been um, beautiful and wonderful, but also super frustrating at the same time because you're by yourself and you're doing your best, and you're like, I only have 2 hands, and I love you both, and I'm trying to do my best. But
And two
now,
babies.
yeah, now that we've had
Yeah.
2 months in, we definitely have gotten into a routine and more structure, and it feels much more, I wouldn't say relaxed, but much more comfortable. And luckily, we have had family and friends that have come and stayed and helped us with them when we need them. So it's been
Yeah.
a beautiful experience, and it definitely takes a village, as a lot of people say.
Does. Oh my gosh, your car seat test just brought back memories. We were in the NICU for a month with one of mine, and I saw several other parents go through this where, you're there, some they're much longer than me, and they get to the day where they're so happy and excited to go home and then fail the car seat test. And sometimes you just stay another day or two, but they do have to be able to sit up in it. And it's really like, it's more for premature babies, but it is something to be aware of. You have to bring
Yeah.
it so they sit in it and keep breathing and everything goes fine, you know.
Yeah.
So,
London passed it the first time, Brecken did not. So we're kind of like,
mhm.
so are you kicking us out? And she gets to come home with one of us, and then the other one has to stay here. And they're like, oh, no, 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 no. We can, we have room for you to stay one more night, and then and we'll test him again tomorrow. And we're like, he's the bigger one. How did he not pass? She was so,
Yeah.
not so smaller. She was a pound lighter, but it was like the little one passed with flying colors. The
But
bigger
then
baby
wasn't
did
it
not.
Didn't Bracken lose more weight for a while and then
After we brought him
London
home, yeah,
didn't?
he
Yeah.
lost. I mean, based on how he was weighed and everything, it said that he lost like 2 pounds
That's a,
ish, and which is a lot. He was seven
yeah.
eight. London was 6'8", so he went down to 5'8". I'm like, I know he looked like it's normal to lose some weight, but it doesn't look like he lost that much. And then
Mhm.
within a matter of days, he gained it back and then some. So
Good.
we obviously want to trust our pediatricians and doctors and everything, but we're kind of like, did he really lose that much? Or was it like maybe a false, weight
But
gain?
those are high birth weights to start at for twins that
For
were a little
twins.
big,
Yeah.
actually.
At 37, 36 and a half
Yeah.
weeks. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so tell us about the inspiration and like the meaning behind the names. We know
Oh,
that
yeah.
where the middle names are derived from, but walk us
Yeah.
through it. I love that
Yeah.
background.
So London was actually a name that I had heard of back like in the early 2000s on Disney Channel. One of their shows, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. If
Mhm.
anyone remembers, there was Brenda Song, who was the actress. She played a character named London Tipton, and or Upton, London Upton. And when I heard that name, I was like, I love that she's named after the city and everything in England. And I'm like, oh my God, that's beautiful. And so it's
Mhm.
always kind of stayed with me. And so when I mentioned it to Chris when it was finally time to talk about names, he was like, I really like that name. And we had other names in place as well, but London was always like at the very top. And then for Brecken, Chris and I, it's funny, we were actually struggling on this name because I really loved the name Jacob, and Chris liked it too, but he really loved Hunter. And so he was saying, well, let's name him Hunter Jacob. And I'm like, no, let's do Jacob Hunter. And so we wouldn't argue,
Mhm.
but we really couldn't come to a middle ground of like, what's it going to be? Are we going to draw straws? Like, what are we going to do? And so it was a few weeks before they were born, and I was kind of just keeping my eyes out for just, names and words and things just that might stand out that could potentially a name for our son. And we're members at a winery in Paso Robles called Brecon Estate. And it's also a small town in Wales, which I think it might be spelled slightly differently. But we were at home having dinner and having a glass of wine, and the bottle of Brecon wine was on our table. And I was staring at it and I was like, oh my God, that could be a really unique, cool name,
Mhm.
and a name that isn't super, super common or isn't common at all. I don't think he would ever meet someone else unless he goes to the city of the little town of Brecken to meet someone else with the same name. And I mentioned it to Chris, and he instantly fell in love. He's like, I think this is the answer to our Hunter Jacob feud, if you
Mhm.
will. And then obviously, as you can see with their middle names, Chris actually came up with that idea. He's like, you know what? Instead of picking these other beautiful names for their middle names that you came up with, how about honoring each other, since we're technically only genetically related to one? So since I'm genetically related to Brecken, Chris said I would love for my name to be his middle name in honor of me. And since I'm not genetically related to London, that my name should be her middle name. And I was like in tears. I was like, this is so
Good.
perfect and so beautiful. So we have Brecken Christopher and London Bryan, and
Mhm.
we wouldn't change a thing. We love it. We
And
love
they both sound so perfect too. I think Breck and Brian might be a little harder to
that.
say,
Yeah.
but they are such beautiful names, and I love the meaning behind it.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so, just finally looking back, and just in light of how we want to help new intended parents who are just starting along this path to parenthood that you've walked now, we want to help people be as educated and empowered as possible. And it can be overwhelming at first. And we want people to be able to advocate for themselves and ask all the questions they need to ask before making these big decisions. And sometimes people don't feel that way or think about questions they would have asked or would have researched more once they're further into the process. So we're just in kind of light of that. Was there anything that you wished you had asked more before making certain decisions about providers you moved forwards with, or just like wish you'd researched more before you got started, that you tell people when they come to ask you?
Yeah, I always say if you're considering expanding your family via surrogacy, to one, take a big deep breath because it's a lot to take in,
Mhm.
especially if you're diving in hard like I would, like researching and there's just so much information coming at you. Um, to take things really slow, to not rush. I know everyone's like, but we want our family sooner than later. And I'm like, yes, no, I totally get that, but take it just one day at a time and try and process, little information as you go through, and then it'll gain more and more. But yeah, ask as many questions as you can. And luckily, our agency that we signed with was super, super open to that. They're like, ask us as many questions that you want. We want to make sure that you feel as comfortable as possible. I mean, we got on many Zoom calls, many emails to ask what we thought might be stupid questions or just redundant questions because we just wanted to make sure, like, what does this mean? Or can this happen? Or what should we expect if this takes place? And it felt very reassuring, in my opinion, once we got to ask all those questions. And I was not shy. The minute that they said, ask your questions, I was like, here we go. I got my list.
What were
I'm sorry.
what were some of the top ones?
Some of the top ones were, let's see, with the surrogacy side, kind of like and the egg creation with the embryos is because again I didn't know how it all works. So I was like, so are we able to choose what we want as far as gender is concerned? Like I want all of my I want all of my embryos to be girls. That like how do we make that happen? And and Chris laughed obviously because he works in science and bio, so he already kind of knew. And our IVF doctor carefully laughed, but he and our agency laughed as well, and they were saying, like, well, you don't really get to choose the gender beforehand, but once your embryos come back for those that are viable, then
Mhm.
we, if you would like to know what those genders are, and if obviously the grades are good and they recommend, then yes, then you can pick that if you really want a little girl or if you really want a little boy. So a lot of that was a lot of education for me that I super appreciated. A lot of big questions also were costs. We wanted to try and figure out, bottom line, what is this going to cost us? And unfortunately, like our agency was able to kind of break down, well, here's all of the generic costs of what you will be responsible for based off of your surrogacy and attorney fees and our agency fee and all of those things. But then they said, but there are other things that could take place or go wrong that we don't foresee that could add to that cost. And so I would say to that, like that can add a lot of stress and a lot of doubt because a lot of people can't afford to do these types of journeys because they are so expensive. And I know that we were very blessed with the money that we got from our house to be able to even start. But try not to be so focused on that large number, even though it's something, yes, you still have to be able to pay for and whatnot, but just ask those right questions to make sure that you feel as comfortable as possible, that before you even begin, is it something attainable and is it something that you for sure want to do, because it's going to start pretty quickly once you sign that dotted line.
I think those are great words of wisdom. You'll get on these consultation calls, they could be a couple hours long, even with an agency, and they'll present you a lot of information. And some people just kind of get a little bit lost in it. Bring your list of questions, ask all of them. Don't decide right away, come back with more questions.
Mhm.
This is a really huge decision. So, well, thank you again, for everything you've shared today. We've kept you too long, I know.
Oh, you're okay. I have a friend here that's helping us with the baby, so luckily that they've been tended to. I was like, fingers crossed they're not like miserable that I'm down here, but
We'll let you get back to them. But yeah, thank you for everything you've shared today and just every day, and for allowing everyone to follow your journey and just learn from it and be inspired. And it's so heartwarming to see the babies,
thank
obviously.
you so much, Becca. We are so appreciate that we got to partner with you, and I hope that we can continue to work together or partner together and bring more visibility, insight to surrogacy and IVF and egg donation with the help of GoStork, for sure.
Thank you so much. And everyone, look out. We'll be sharing a little bit more in June during Pride Month. Watch
Yeah.
our from Bryan
Go
and Chris.
Pride Month. It's the twins' first Pride Month. It's exciting.
And yeah, and just especially with that said, both Infertility Awareness Month and Pride Month are coming up. So I just can't say enough how many people, you'll continue to help through that and beyond with everything you're sharing. So thank you again. And if anyone has questions you think of that you didn't get to ask, you can feel free to DM us, probably either of us, right? And if anyone has, more topics you'd like us to bring to these lives, we always love the feedback and the requests. I love hearing from everyone. So thank you again for joining us, and hope you
Thanks
have
for
a great rest of your day.
you as well. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you. Go enjoy the babies.
I will. Bye. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.